Hello and welcome to Everyday Lessons Every Day. I'm David McBee. Based on my book by the same name, this podcast is for those of us who believe in personal growth and want to improve every day. In this 2021 season, the stories come directly from people whose lives have been impacted in a positive way by an everyday lesson that they've learned. This is episode 27, Be a Quitter and Say No, with Mike Bodie. Mike, thanks so much for joining me today on Everyday Lessons Every Day. I appreciate you taking some time out of your vacation to chat with me this morning.
David, I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity for me to come on and discuss this with you.
All right. Well, let's just get right to it. I want my listeners to know a little bit about Mike Bodie before we begin. So tell us, I know these things, but tell our listeners, are you married? Are you single? Are you a father? Go through the resume there.
Absolutely. So I am married. I'm in my second marriage. I was married for 18 years previous to this marriage. And I have three daughters, one who is married with three kids herself. I have another daughter. Her and her girlfriend live not too far from us. And then I have another daughter who actually is in school right now. So she's studying to be an elementary teacher. And so I got remarried about 3 years ago to a lovely lady named Nicole. And
who's way out of your league, by the way.
Yes, way out of my league, way out of my league. So I'm not really sure what she was thinking. We do not have kids together. She does not have kids. And that is something that we discussed. But, of course, we decided not to have kids. And so she does her job and I do mine, but it's been a great 3 years. We've been together almost 5 years, married 3 years. So, and we travel. And now that I have older kids and kids out of the house and two off of payroll, but I have grandkids that have become payroll. But, my youngest daughter is still in school, so she's still on payroll. But we do a lot of traveling. That's 2020 has hindered us a little bit because we have not been able to travel like we normally would do. But it's been good for us to be home together. We've learned a lot more about each other, good and bad. So we've done a lot of soul searching, but it's been a positive experience for us.
Mike, I hear a lot of people in 2020 complaining about not being able to travel. I'm definitely one of them, but I've got to tell you, I don't have a lot of sympathy for you, in particular, since you live in a place that most people would want to travel to. So I'm just putting that out there.
This is true. We do have the most beautiful beaches, as you've been here before on a business trip, and you and I have got to connect. But, I do live in a place where everybody does want to vacation.
And let's put that out there. It's Pensacola for our listeners.
It is Pensacola, Florida. And so, I'm not too far from the beach. However, we deal with things like hurricanes and Hurricane Sally, which sent barges into our bridge. So a 30-minute commute to the beach now takes over an hour and a half. So there is that downside. But hopefully we'll have the bridge up and running by March. That's what they say. We'll see. And then right in time to get back out to the beach. And I know you hate to hear this, but get right back out on the boat and enjoy the water. But
you know what? When 2021, when life gets back to a little bit more like normal, I think you're going to appreciate that beach. You're going to appreciate that bridge, Mike.
No, absolutely. A lot of people will look at 2020, and there's a lot of things that have happened in 2020 from friends who have lost loved ones. But let's be honest, from the pandemic and social unrest, there's a lot of things that have happened. But there's also been a lot of great things that have happened in 2020. And I'm always a glass half full kind of guy. And so I do look at the positives of the things that have come out of 2020. More people have spent time with family. More people have spent time with their neighbors, even though social distancing is people are applying it, which is great, but people are spending more time at home, more time with their family. I have learned through other friends that there's a reason I did not go into teaching. So I am grateful that I don't have little ones at home. But, there are things that we have to look at and look at the positives that have come out of 2020. But we can't forget the negatives of 2020 because that is where we learn and that is where we grow.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, speaking of learning, that's what this podcast is all about. I talk to people who are on a path of self-improvement. I know that description applies to you specifically. I watch your self-improvement YouTube videos that are out there, and I talk to you about this a lot. So tell us what did you bring a lesson from a book today, or a movie, or a song, or where did your lesson come from?
No, today I actually just finished a book, and the book is Dream Big, and it's by Bob Goff. And it's a phenomenal book. It's allowing the things and look at things differently. And during this time frame is how do you dream big during this time frame? And so his book really spoke to me. But there was one chapter in the book that really stuck to me, and it's called Be a Quitter.
Hmm.
Yeah. So if you know me well, and probably a lot of your listeners don't, I raised my daughters to in my statement that I've always raised to my three kids and what I grew up with from my dad playing sports in high school, playing baseball in college, was never give up. Don't be a quitter. Never give up. To the point where a little bit of information, I have it tattooed actually on my chest. I have multiple tattoos and I have it on my chest. It says never give up. And when I read this, I'm like, be a quitter. I'm like, what? I'm not a quitter. So why would I be a quitter? And so as I read this chapter, it talks not so much about being a quitter of quitting in a negative way. It really talks about quitting in a positive way. So growing up here in Pensacola, growing up on the water, I've always been involved with boating. I've always been involved with sailing, which I'm not a real big sailor, but I will go on the sailboats with my friends. But if you know anything about sailboats, there's a keel that goes up underneath the water. And the keel actually picks up a lot of different things as you're scooting through the water. So seaweed, different stuff that's up underneath the water, and it actually slows the boat down. So the boat's still moving, and you're still going in the direction, but the keel is gathering all this stuff up underneath the water that sometimes you don't know that it is doing. So Bob Goff talks about this, and he's also a big boater and sailor. And so he was talking about sailing his boat from Hawaii to California. I believe he lives in California, if I'm not mistaken. And so he talked about noticing the kelp that was gathering up under this boat. Now, the only way to get the kelp off of the keel is turn the boat around so the current underneath will allow you to turn the boat in a different direction, and the kelp will fall off, and then you turn the boat back around so you don't have a lot of drag up underneath the boat. And so as he was talking about that, and he noticed the kelp came back, but then it went away. So as he was on his way to California, he thought, okay, I'm good. Boat's still moving in the right direction. We're still making good speed. We're still doing the right things. But he noticed when he sailed into California and he was sailing up underneath the San Francisco Bridge, as he slowed down, the kelp floated up to the top. And so what he determined was he has actually drugged that kelp from basically Hawaii all the way across to California. Now, the cool thing about that was he was talking about the amount of time that it took him to get there. He brought up how fast, or what would probably be the better way to look at it is, would I made it to California quicker without all of the drag up underneath the boat? And I got thinking about that. I was like, that's interesting. And as a boater, I went into it, and I started doing some research, and I was looking at it. But what really took me for a surprise is if Bob Goff, if you've never heard of him, he's an attorney, and he had a huge law firm, and he's done a lot of great things, not only within the states but outside the states, fighting for rights for people that live outside of our country. And so he talks about him quitting things. And one day he talked about quitting his job on a Thursday. So he walked into his law firm and quit on a Thursday. He talks about, I sold my truck on a Thursday. I quit. And all of a sudden he's picked this day to quit things on Thursday. And so as I continue to read through it, he talks about, I quit my law firm. I quit the board of the position of an organization. Now remember, he didn't do this because he wanted to be a quitter. He did this because a lot of the things that he was doing was dragging him from being productive and doing other things. It's like how many things that we do in life that we accept and we say, oh, yes, I will do this. Yes, I will do this. But in reality is we should say no. because the amount of drag that is pulling you back. So I took this and I started to read and dissect it. And I started asking my question: what do I need to give up? What do I need to say no to? Where do I need to turn the boat around and drop some kelp? What are those things? So I started looking through my life and looking at things that I was, I say applying to, but working with different organizations, working with X, Y, and Z. And it constantly just became more and more and more. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to start this. So I didn't pick a Thursday. I picked a Tuesday. So I wanted a different day because I wanted to be my own, right? So I started just dropping things, not because I didn't want to be involved, but because I wanted to open up a little bit different. I wanted to apply myself in different areas that were more productive. Not saying the other ones were not, but it was dragging me down. Not maybe in a negative way, but it was just holding me back to a point where your listeners will know I'm in sales. So I am a sales leader. I have a sales team, of course, in Pensacola. Well, during this time frame when I was shedding things, I had the opportunity to now become a sales leader, not only in Pensacola, Florida, but I've taken over a team in Mobile, Alabama. So now it's one sales team. So I went from 5 sales reps to 11 sales reps.
Congratulations. That sounds like a promotion.
Well, it's a promotion. It's more. I'm waiting for the pay raise. But, my thing is I wouldn't have been able to do that if I would have continued to have all the things on my plate that I did.
Well, Mike, what are some examples of things that you shed, that you quit on Tuesday?
Well, one of the things I was involved with a organization where I would talk to within the jail. So I would go in within the jail and I would have classes. Not that that's a bad thing, but it started to take up a lot of time, and it was time for someone else to move into my spot and give them the opportunity. So that's one thing. So I stopped teaching in this jail. I'm still part of the program and still help, but I don't spend as much time as I did in the past. I taught Sunday school at my church here, and I looked at that as there was a time frame and some transition, and so I stepped down from that. I still do my things and I still do my studies that I normally would do, and I still write. But those are, and from that perspective, from a work perspective, there were things I was leading within my organization that I looked at and said, it's time for me to step back and allow someone else to do this. I've done it for X amount of years. And so, it may be whatever that may be within the organization that I was doing, and I allowed someone else to do it. So it's allowed me to have a little bit more free time to now do the things I love to do. And that is teaching, that is leading. And so it's allowed me to now pick up this other team.
I think a lot of people will relate to this. People tend to say yes because they want to be agreeable. They want people to like them. They want to participate in as many different aspects of life as they can. So they say yes all the time. And it sounds to me like you're saying that, there is a time to say no or to quit the things that you've said yes to. Is that what I'm getting out of this?
No, absolutely. There is a time to say no. I look at it as, go back to the old saying years ago, just say no. So there is that time where we can say no, and it's okay to say no. I hear a lot of people say you have to know when to say no, but you also have to learn to say no nicely too. And one of the things I challenge people is, and it goes both spectrum, you hear some people say, well, let me think about it, maybe later. And the best one that I hear yet is, let me pray on it. Just say no. That's what I had to challenge myself. Don't answer it as, well, let me check with my wife. Let me check with my husband. Let me think about it. Let me pray on it. No, just say no. Make a decision and move forward. Because what you're doing when you're sitting there and you're not making a decision, you're gathering more kelp around your kill by not making a decision.
Way to bring it back. Oh, that was brilliant.
Yeah. So, you have to.
Did you plan that, Mike Bodie?
I did not. That just actually came to my head as we're sitting here talking. That's the scary part. Sometimes I come up with some brilliant things. I'm not sure that was brilliant, but I'm going to go with it.
I kind of love this because most of the time, people listen to this podcast and they walk away with something to do, right? To read a book or to make a change that takes effort, right?
Right.
And really what you're saying is a little bit of the opposite of that. Like, don't take on so much. It's okay to quit something that isn't taking you in the right direction, that isn't helping you achieve your goals. It's okay to say no to a friend or someone who is asking for something if it isn't in line with your own personal goals. So I think the listeners will kind of love the idea of, oh, I don't have homework after this podcast, yet I could actually shed some of the things that are holding me back.
No, and I think too, one of the ways to look at this, and maybe it works for me, but here's an idea. Saying yes when you want to say no becomes a very harmful habit. And how many times when we use the word habit applies to something good?
It's pretty rare. It's usually a bad habit we're always talking about.
It's normally a bad habit. Absolutely. And so have that mindset to when someone asks, or hey, read another book, or here's some homework, or whatever it may be. If this doesn't fit within the time frame, it's okay to say no, and don't allow the kelp to get on your keel.
Great advice. I'm so glad you read that book and that you shared that story with us. And I think it might be worth checking back with you in a few months to see how your new job is going, see how the impact of your sailing is, if you are a better sailor because you're getting rid of the kelp.
Absolutely. And I would love to circle back with you guys and hear more about of course, I listen to your podcast. So I'm always listening and learning from that perspective. But I would love to join you again. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all this wonderful advice. And if someone wants to get in touch with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
You can definitely email me. You can email me at mbodie38@gmail.com. You can also go to YouTube, type in Mike Bodie. There's a leadership podcast. There's multiple. It's called Lead to Move, and that is Lead to Move. And you can type that in YouTube so you can see me there, or you can visit me on Twitter, and it's Mike Bodie 38.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I'll let you get back to your day.
David, I greatly appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing more from your listeners.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. A couple of everyday lessons that I know a lot of us needed to hear. It's okay to quit or say no to the things that aren't helping you achieve your goals. And so I challenge you, write quit or no on your wrist. The next time you're evaluating a project or a task that's going to require your time, ask yourself if it will help you get where you want to go or if it's just kelp that will slow you down. Then make a decision. Don't waver. Don't worry too much about what others will think. Just make a decision that aligns with your goals, your dreams, and your intentions. Let me know what happens when you implement this lesson by reaching out to me personally or posting your story on social media with the hashtag #EverydayLessonsEveryday. And if you like this podcast, please share it with a friend. Let's see if together we can make the world a better place. Finally, if you or someone you know has an everyday lesson that they'd like to share, I'd love to hear from them. Put us in touch. I can be reached at david@davidmcbee.com. I'll see you next time. Now go out there and do something awesome. You getting a call right now?
Yeah, I don't know why I was on my phone. I turned it on silent.
Dude, I was getting a call at the exact same time you were.
Well, I was like, I put it on silent so it would be vibrating.